Right, Mark Crossfield here on my Ask Golf Guru channel. It's time for you to have your say. It's that time of the day where we put it out to you and you tell us what you think. And today's question on hashtag have your say. So who wins and who loses? DP World Tour forming a strong alliance with the PGA Tour. Is this the end of DP World or just the beginning? Is it the end or the beginning of the DP World Tour and their new alliance with the PGA Tour? Let's hear what you've got to say. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I do think we are in a very interesting time in golf, and lots of you have got some interesting opinions on this. So let's kick in there straight off with Alan. Beginning of the end, it gives them the look of being on par with Corn Ferry. So it does have this slight, people are saying that the European DP World Tour now basically feels like a poor man's Corn Ferry Tour, basically a poor person's Corn Ferry Tour. It's a feeder tour now for the PGA Tour with this new alliance. In the alliance, there's going to be 10 PGA Tour cards available for the top 10 players in the DP World who are not already eligible. I think, and don't quote me on this, if you go back to last season's end of year standings, it was down to something like the 27th player would have got a PGA Tour card because of the people who are already eligible. Take Rory McIlroy, if you finish his top 10, for argument's sake, he's already PGA Tour eligible, so he doesn't take one of those cards. It keeps going down the list. So it does make you wonder how the European Tour is going to, or the DP World Tour, I find that so tough, are going to sustain any kind of class as a tour without just losing it all to the PGA Tour. Kyle says here, the DP World Tour is only 2 events at the start of the year. Scottish and Irish Opens, Wentworth, Dunhill at the end of the year. No point fighting against the PGA Tour or LIV. I think that's meant to say they had to pick a side. At least this way, a few European Tour events might get a few PGA Tour players, and we're already seeing that in the Scottish this year. We're having the Irish at the moment as I film this, and then we got the Scottish. It's got lots of PGA Tour players in it, which, as I agree with Carl, there could be a very good part and the beginning of a very different DP World Tour. The DP World Tour only has 2 events, is a little harsh to say the least, and maybe a little naive. Scottish and Irish at the start of the year, well, it's June, nearly July, so that's not the start of the year, and they're literally not started yet. This week, Irish. And Wentworth and Dunhill at the end. Yeah, they're bigger events, but there's plenty of other very good events on the DP World Tour. But I guess that is the problem with the DP World Tour. Maybe it's not a strong enough brand for people like Carl to realise that it is more than events, not always at the time of the year that he might think they are. That's some interesting points from Kyle there. Willie Hickey says here, it could lead to a slow demise of the Ryder Cup. I made this point in the Hack It Out podcast last night. I certainly asked the question, will it? I mean, it's hard to tell. It might strengthen it. It might make the American audience engage more with European Tour players that they're not getting to see as much, similar to maybe what Kyle's doing there. Because players who play well on other events from than just those 4 might get there in that top 10 space, and you'll be introduced to some new players. So then when you go to the Ryder Cup, it's full of players possibly. But, I mean, I think the Ryder Cup is in an interesting place if you just go and throw LIV into the mix, isn't it? Because as soon as you put LIV into that mix, if they're not playing Ryder Cup, which in theory they won't be, you're losing some big names that have played Ryder Cup for many years, and ones who would be, playing Ryder Cup for many future years as well. It's not all just has-beens, as people want to seem to be saying. So Ryder Cup, interesting, definitely. So Ed says here, admitting in their statement they are just a feeder tour for the PGA Tour was a bit of a shock. A feeder tour that gets 20 less tour cards than the Corn Ferry Tour. Sad state of affairs. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I saw a tweet from Ian Woosnam asking if the European Seniors Tour is going to get any benefits from this money, bearing in mind that many of the players on that tour are the ones who built the European Tour stroke now DP World, which I think is more than fair. I think that European Tour purple patch, when you're going Sevi, Langer, Lazabal, Faldo, Woosnam, Lyle, and many others that I'm probably forgetting unfairly that contributed to it, it kind of all came to a bit of nothing, possibly, did it? I mean, all that work for it just to now become what is looked at as a feeder tour for the PGA Tour does seem tragic on some levels, doesn't it? DP World Tour have bottled it. It's almost funny that the whole point of the PGA Tour is saying Saudi money is bad, so don't go, but then they can partner up with DP World Tour as a sponsor, who still has no issue with China tournaments. They would have been better off ignoring LIV from Ben, and then saying you want to leave, but when you know you are the best and will show how good our tour is to compare to your one. I mean, he makes some interesting points there, Ben, about the alliances, and this is a question I definitely have going around in my head, and in the comments let us know on any of these points what you think. The PGA Tour definitely have played a human rights aspect to this in relationship to LIV, which is a perfectly valid question for us all to be asking, and totally agree that these questions should be asked and challenged, and we need to be upfront with where the money's coming from, and if we support that or don't, or want to be neutral with it, like whatever. That's all good debates. But the PGA Tour definitely made a stance on saying things along the lines that you don't say sorry for playing on the PGA Tour, suggesting that you will be saying sorry a lot if you play LIV, which again, there's definitely reasons to be saying that. But now they're just going into a stronger partnership with DP World. I mean, Dubai is arguably the blueprint of changing its ways, its political ways, through using sport to make the world see it as a different place, and it's changed Dubai, possibly you could argue, for the better over years. That's a real contradiction and hypocrisy in my head I struggle with, that you're shouting human rights banners, but then you're partnering with a part of the world that's so connected, to Saudi in many ways and that whole region, and already has its human rights issues that you've possibly, and if not the PGA Tour, certainly people in the PGA Tour mouthpiece media have highlighted, which are, true issues to highlight, but they're still there in DP World Tour connections, but they don't seem to be brought to the forefront. That one does, but it's a weird one. And it'll be the end. Dora9 says, after 2023, the PGA Tour will be stealing the top 10 from the DP Tour for the remainder of the, in inverted commas, alliance. And that is a good point. Greg made this in our podcast last night. If you don't listen to the podcast, Hack It Out Golf Podcast, get it on all your favourite podcast streamers. Check it out. We talk about golf and lessons and many things. Myself, Lou Stagner, our current stat hole, and Greg Chalmers, PGA Tour player, he was saying exactly that. I mean, basically, any great young talent that comes through Europe is just, the pathway is so clear now, where there's a part of me in my heart, and maybe it's just a heartfelt a feeling rather than a reality, because the reality is that the top players do go to the PGA Tour. I understand that, but is there not a part of us that wants the European Tour to be strong, to be a contender, to actually take on the PGA Tour? Do we have to just bow to the PGA Tour? Does the PGA Tour not want some good, strong competition? It could work for both. If both tours were super strong with huge pots, it would make a more global, maybe, brand for everyone to enjoy around the world. I mean, I feel so sorry for the people of Australia who get very little world-class golf going to their part of the world, and Japan, and that way. Basically, it's so Americanized, centralized American, and DP, which does travel more around the world and certainly around Europe, seems to be just like, you just have our better players over X amount of time, does seem a little defeatist, possibly, or maybe it's just the reality of what it needs to do. Patrick says it's the end. Aid says beginning of the end. PGA Tour clearly wants to eat everything up and to fight LIV. Thought it was a bad move originally for DP World to form the alliance with the PGA Tour. PGA Tour just want the monopoly. It's hard to disagree with that. It's there was an alliance pre-LIV, obviously, but it was much calmer. This is a much more aggressive alliance, and it feels like their hand has maybe been pushed, or their players been pushed, and now they, it's a way of defending. It does feel a little bit like DP is just some pawn in a bigger game here, which, again, me personally, as a golfer in Europe, I would want European golf to be worth loads more than that, but maybe that's just romantic. It's the end. Seve would be turning in his grave. Yeah, I get that. Tough for young European players to make it to the top, maybe if getting less cards than US feeder tour. Don't really know enough about it yet, to be honest, from Steve. Small win for PGA Tour, smaller win for DP World Field, but a large win for the existing something on, for the extension or something on the DP World Tour, Seve says. Why is it only now that there is a third party? Could have happened a long time ago. Yeah, it does feel like the timing is absolutely fantastic, isn't it? The European Tour has always been a pathway for top players to get to the PGA Tour. They will play the bigger European events, so top prize funds. So the fact that prize funds will be boosted and guarantees top tens, PGA Tour will be great for Euro players. I will be watching the Irish Open, not LIV, from Rich. Yeah, I mean, that is a very true statement. It is something that has been a pathway, but it's not always been like that. And it was money, you could argue, that made that happen as well. And I thought money was the root of all evil for making decisions, according to poster people of the PGA Tour. And obviously the PGA Tour breathe this idea of legacy and what have you, but really at the end of the day it was money that drove the Europeans to want to go and play for the bigger pots. Obviously with the amount of money flying around in golf, with the introduction of LIV and DP World, you thought was a sponsor that could be really strong for European golf in a financial way. I don't know, it feels a shame that maybe DP World isn't going for it on its own. But again, my ignorance is, I'll agree, it's big here. Maybe it's just a completely unrealistic idea. This is a knee-jerk for the tours that weren't worried about LIV, have a strange way of showing it. It's a bit childish. It's my ball, my captain problem. LIV is a nice new ball and a big bag of sweets. And Chris, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing as well here, which will be interesting, what this means for LIV going forwards. Again, it's just going to separate more. And people say that, it's going to be, and I understand this, that it's LIV is creating the separations in golf. I think Pelly's done articles saying that, LIV is literally trying to create stuff outside of the constructs of where golf is. But the reality is, golf doesn't need to be the PGA Tour or the European Tour. I mean, if you think of the Masters, I know this is a funny example, but bear with me. I mean, the Masters is just a made-up event. They decided to put it on years ago, and they grew it into what they did now, which is, a major. And they did amazing with it and do amazing with it, even though it has its holes over the years, obviously. But my point is that you don't need these monopolies in golf. Can be challenged, and they're being challenged, and people are almost saying, well, that's not right. This is not what golf is. No, it's not what you remember golf is, but golf isn't just on this planet so the PGA Tour can have the elite level or the DP World. They're just options, and we now have a different option, maybe. And again, as we're seeing, as Phil pointed out, even though he still has to be the baddie in all this, because the media can't kind of, bite their own bullets yet. They have to pretend that they're not completely biased. Phil, it was right. The needle's moved, the LIV has shifted it all, and things are changing, and for lots of people, for the better. Money is changing. PGA Tour have announced massive pot increases. It's about who will win the viewers. DP World Tour is so boring. This is Paul. PGA Tour is exciting, but the LIV provides better entertainment than people will switch over. We all just want to watch golf. And I think this is a really great point, Paul. And I think there's some good points in here and something that maybe gets forgotten. I think in amongst the golf world on Twitter and other platforms, yeah, we understand to a certain extent what the PGA Tour means. We have this respect for it and the players. But it's Wimbledon's on at the minute, and I'm going to watch it because it's on my telly. I mean, I did play tennis and do play tennis a little, but I used to play it a lot. So I'm more of a tennis fan, but I would watch it even if I still, if I didn't play tennis ever, because it's an entertaining piece of sport. LIV will be also on my telly via my computer come tomorrow, so I will watch it. The Irish Open isn't on my telly because I have to pay for it, and I don't want to pay for that, so I won't watch it, along with most of the major PGA, which is on my telly if I choose to pay for it, but I don't want to pay for it. I'm not that fussed. I can follow it online, so I don't watch it. So the fact that LIV is going to make itself maybe more accessible, we can all go around in these circles about what's right and wrong for golf in our moral golf hats and shirts like we do, like golfers do at golf clubs. But at the end of the day, if it does get in front of eyeballs and people watch it and it becomes a product, then we're going to have less say. It'll be interesting. I mean, I will watch LIV because I can, the same way I watch the tennis. And I think Paul is kind of hinting at that point here as well. They just want to watch golf, and if LIV's on, they'll watch it. The audience watching the Irish Open, apart from the America pulling it, the European audience will be minuscule. European Tour doesn't get great viewing figures on Sky. Sky is renowned for just needing the majors to prop its golf stuff up. And you can see that from the level of show they produce. It's stuck in old male world, isn't it? Depends only on money, period. Yeah, it kind of does. End, says Aussie Golf Geek. How can it not be seen as simply as a feeder tour for the PGA Tour? It's a tragedy. Yeah, I mean, it does for me, and again, I'll happily be wrong over time. I'm not saying I know everything on this at all, but I think it's a tragedy. It feels like a tragedy. It feels like something that I felt that we had, not that it's anything to do with us, but as a fan we had, could be better, could be grown. We produced loads of great players, and yes, they go to America, but that's often predominantly to do more with the university system. That's, I'm presuming, why Ram is there, and that's why Hovland is there, the two most, say, young, exciting European Tour players off the top of my head at the minute. If they went to America and used the universities for their development and growth, but then LIV offered some good options, you might find some of them coming back. And if DP World offered them some great options and some financial gains, I think you would see them coming back as well. Graham says, door, horse, bolted. You'd have thought LIV just appeared from nowhere. Now DP deal having to react accordingly. I think DP has devalued itself personally, but who knows? I kind of agree with you there, Graham. It is a case of who knows, but I also do feel like it's devalued itself a little bit as well. And that's a common feed here. It's the end, start of PGA Tour dominating Europe and Asia too. LIV the only competition now. Kevin here, official feeder tour for the PGA Tour. And again, CJ, the end. Euro Tour soon to become a feeder tour. You've got to feel. And there's not much positivity from the spectator world. I think the players within DP World might see it more positively. But it's definitely a good opportunity, more opportunity possibly to get now onto the PGA Tour, which can be the goal. And if that is the goal, then it is a great move. Me personally, I feel a little bit like maybe the DP World Tour has just given up and they just making the best of what they can do from what they've got. But hopefully I'm completely ignorant on this subject and completely wrong, and it's the best move for the DP World Tour, and we'll keep getting great young talent, more of it with more opportunities, because that's what we want here in Europe. Let me know. Great responses there on Twitter. Thanks for commenting. Let me know in those comments down below. What do you think? DP World Tour aligning with the PGA Tour. Is it the beginning of the end, or is it the beginning? Let me know. This is a hotbed. Can't wait. And will you be watching LIV tomorrow, or will you be watching the Irish Open?